Hello, everyone, and welcome to the World Mental Health Day. My name is Ronald Takudzwa Mutatabikwa. Mr. Law is what you can call me, and I'm super excited to be connecting with you on this special day as we commemorate mental health. We're going to be talking about mental health. And just to introduce myself, my name is Ronald Takudzwa Mutatabikwa. I'm a recently qualified social worker. I am a mental health activist. I'm also a spoken word artist known as Mr. Loyal. I've also been on various platforms. I've been on the national television. I've also been on various national radio stations. I've been in the national press talking about developmental issues. And I'm super excited to be communicating with you and connecting with you this afternoon to talk about mental health. And I really want to thank Ms. Joanna for the sessions that she has been taking us, which are called Take Back My Life, which is centered around mental health, and we have learned a lot. So this is just part of what I've researched. This was part of my research dissertation, where I was looking at the social media effects on young people's mental health, just to look at how social media affects young people's mental health. And as you all know, we are coming out of a pandemic, the COVID-19, where it had a lot of restrictions, where people were locked up in their houses and they couldn't go out to meet with others. And as we all know that as human beings, we are social animals. That means we socialize, we live by socializing with each other. But now, because of the situation that we're in, we found ourselves being locked in our houses, and people took then those relationships that we had, the relations with others, and those communications to social media. And that got us to have a high record of social media usage during that period, because people were communicating over social media. And during this time, a lot of people were dying. During this time, a lot of people were going through a lot of mental health issues. And some, to let those things out, they then took them to social media. For some, the content that they were posting, it then affected a lot of young people's mental health. I'll keep saying young people because these are the majority of people who use social media. So I'll quickly share my screen. Here we go. Okay. So this was part of my research, as I have said, and these are some of the things that I found on how social media affects young people's mental health. So social media plays a lot of roles in edifying or in depression, in anxiety, in suicide, and also in addictions. And I'll quickly take you through this presentation that I've made. So we are going to start with the definitions of the key terms. And according to the World Health Organization, it conceptualizes mental health as well-being in which the individual realizes his or her own abilities, can cope with the normal life stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or her community. And mental illness has been also called mental health disorders, refers to a wide range of mental health conditions, disorders that affect your mood, thinking, and behavior. And social media are web-based services that allow individuals, communities, and organizations to collaborate, connect, interact, and build community by enabling them to create, co-create, modify, share, and engage with user-generated content that is easily accessible. So if we look at the definition that we've been given by the World Health Organization, it means that if anything that can make anyone not be able to do what has been mentioned in the definition, if they fail to cope with the normal life stresses, if they fail to work productively and fruitfully, and is not able to make a contribution to his or her community, it means they're having a mental health challenge. Now, moving on. So from the research that I carried out, these are some of the social media platforms that have most young people's attention. And we have Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Messenger, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and I also see the Snapchat and Pinterest. These were some of them that were highlighted by the participants of that research, that these are the social media platforms that take part or most of their attention. Now, how does social media affect mental health? So social media may lead to depression through social media pressure. And this pressure comes through platforms such as Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok, right? So if you have noticed, if you go on platforms like Instagram, there are pictures or there's a certain level of content that people post, and they post this content. And if you have noticed, there's a certain type of content that attracts a lot of followers, that attracts a lot of likes. And those things, they start to trend. Usually to someone who's on the other side of the screen, they are pressurized also to try and do that, because there's a certain level of success, there's a certain level of standard that has been set. And if someone fails to then get to a certain standard or to fit in a certain bracket that has been created on social media, they might be depressed because they might not see themselves as worthy of a person. Because if they post whatever they post, they're going to get a few likes, but there's someone or there are other people are posting a certain type of content that then gets a lot of people. So to someone who can't afford a certain product that has been posted, or a certain lifestyle that is portrayed on social media, they might be depressed because they think they are not good enough. And also people might be depressed through social media, through what is called social comparison. And I'll talk about a gentleman, a psychologist called Leon Festinger. He came up with a theory called the social comparison. And he says people have an innate drive to evaluate themselves, often in comparison with others. So it's a tendency of human beings to evaluate themselves, but they do this by comparing themselves to other people. So on social media, we have influencers, we also have celebrities, and we also have models. These are people who post a certain lifestyle. These are people who work with different brands and they post those brands. Let's say if it's a model who's working with a car company, they post those things. To someone who's on the other side of the screen, they are comparing themselves to that person because there is a certain standard that person has set. So now they think success means being like that person, because we've said from that definition, the drive that we have is to evaluate ourselves, but often in comparison with other people. So to someone who then can't afford a certain lifestyle that is being posted by a certain influencer, that is being posted by a certain celebrity, it means to them it's going to come as a blow and it's going to affect their mental health. And recently it's so sad that I came across the news of a Nigerian socialite who died while undergoing a surgery of wanting to modify a body. That's so sad. This is coming through social media pressure. This is coming through the things that people see on social media, as they're always glued to social media because it has become part of our lives. So to someone then who is consuming that content, they get depressed because they are often comparing themselves to others. Then moving on, social media may also affect one's mental health through cyberbullying. It's said that in Zimbabwe, there's been a trend of people who say nasty things about other people on social media. And sometimes the victims are not aware of the rights that they have. And the government has tried to come up with the Cybersecurity Act to try and curb on such issues. But little has been done in terms of trying to implement and also conscientize the general man on what that means, on what cyberbullying means, on what that means to them and what they should do if they come across things like that. And under cyberbullying, we have also seen issues to do with body shaming. People have the nerve and people can call someone someone can be labeled a Jojo Tank because they're plus size or they have a big body, which is bad because it affects their mental health. So social media also affects them through cyberbullying. And moving on, an American university research showed that people who spent most of their time on social media were lonely, and loneliness is often associated with depression. Right? So what happens is, if someone is spending much of their time on social media, that is going to strain their friendships, that is going to strain their relations with people or with their families. That affects them because they become lonely. It's possible that someone can become lonely while they're in a group. This is because most of the time is being spent on social media. And social media is something that has become so real in that you can talk to anyone and communicate with anyone as if you're speaking to them in person, in terms of the duration of the conversation and of the responses that you get. So people then find themselves being lonely in as much as they have a lot of followers, in as much as they have a lot of people that they communicate with on social media. They get depressed, they get lonely because of the strained relations that they have with people who are there or people around them. And in Zimbabwe, moving on, there has been a trend of violence, as they call it, where people say bad things about about others. They just say things either to get likes, either to be relevant, or actually to get a certain social status. That's what they do. So in as much as people, there are some people use social media to vent about issues that they'll be facing. And there are people who then take that as an opportunity to be violent because they want to get likes, because they want to trend, because they want to be quote, they are the heroes of social media. But little do they know that whatever that they are doing have effects on the next person who is also a social media user. Then moving on, social media can also affect one's mental health because it triggers suicidal thoughts and behaviors. Firstly, it triggers suicidal thoughts because the content on suicide is actually available. It can be accessed by anyone on social media. So the availability of that content on its own, it's a danger to social media consumers. And also there are people who have issues and use social media as a way of venting. And the ways they say their things, I recently came across a video of someone who was committing suicide live on Facebook. And what does that do to someone who is consuming that content? It affects their mental health in a lot of ways because the content that we consume, the things that we put in ourselves are the things that we mirror or project outside. So it affects their mental health because they now have to deal with that trauma of seeing people committing suicide. They might also come across content that might trigger them to then have these suicidal thoughts and behaviors. And also, from the research that I carried out, I found out that social media may also affect one's mental health through substance and drug abuse, and I'll explain. People who have gone through a lot on social media, who have gone things that we have mentioned before, such as cyberbullying, might find drug and substance abuse as a coping mechanism, number one. Number two, social media also has heroes. They have influencers. And these influencers, there's a certain narrative that they push, whatever that they see, they say people will listen because there are people who are at an elevated point of standing in life, and whatever that they say have influence to their followers. And if you look at it, this also comes to the issues of, let's say, musical videos or any videos that are found on social media, where you see most big celebrities abusing different types of drugs. What message does that send to someone who is consuming that content? They might think that's the right way of doing things because to them, their role model is doing that. And there was a TikTok challenge, which is a trend, which was known as Sip My Alcohol Challenge. And on that challenge, what people were doing was people were drinking alcohol. They were recording their videos while they were drinking alcohol. They were pouring alcohol on themselves. Now, how does that affect one's mental health? Because someone is consuming that content, they feel the urge to then join in a certain trend because there's what is called formal fear of being left out. Because they just don't want to remain behind, they don't want to be left behind, they also want to look cool and they want to be cool like others. They then hope on these trends, try out new things and other drugs that then affect them in the long run because they then fail to do their daily routines, they fail to deal with the daily life stresses. And when they fail to do that, it becomes a mental health challenge. As we have said, that mental health, from the definition of World Health Organization, is that when someone is in a state of well-being where they can deal with daily life stresses. So some of these things then hinder them from doing the things that they should be doing or dealing with certain situations. That's how their mental health may be affected. And I've said through these trends, and they may also lead social media users to then abuse drugs and substances. And in the long run, they may lead to addictions. And also high social media usage may lead to anxiety. I'll tell you for a fact, this is what I found out from the study, that majority of my participants highlighted that it's very difficult for them to spend 30 minutes or an hour without checking whatever that is going on their phone. They have that age, that anxiety, they are always anxious to check what's happening online. They can't stay away from their phones. They just want to check what's happening. So that also comes with social media. And if then someone gets to that extent where they can't control their age to use their phone or to use social media, it then becomes a mental health challenge. And also the availability of explicit content may lead to addictions. This is because social media is people who are coming from different cultures, people coming from different backgrounds, and the narratives that they push are different. And people who post certain explicit content might get a lot of people who follow them, might get a lot of likes. So to someone who is on the other side, to someone who also wants to be there, who also wants to be an influencer, also wants to be on the top, they might find themselves also hopping on these things, trying to look like the influencers that they see, trying to look as the people that they see on social media so that they can get likes as well. And also, because they've seen this content, they might get addicted to the content that they see, and that affects the way they think, that affects their cognitive, even the way they see things. And also, I'll talk about bad sleeping behaviors. I have seen a lot of people who fail to sleep at night. I've seen a lot of people who post on Twitter at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., or anytime because they're failing to sleep because of social media. They are so trapped in that they can't live it. When someone gets to that extent, their mental health has been affected. And let me quickly show you how then that affects them in the long run. So if someone lacks sleep, it means the following day they're going to be tired. So tiredness, from that, they will have a difficult coping with daily life. And once we get to the point where they fail to deal with a certain life stress, then it means their mental health is not on point. Their mental health is not where it's supposed to be. And that also might lead to their low self-esteem. And from that, they will have feelings of worry and even stress. So this is how lack of sleep might then affect someone's mental health. But if we then trace why is it they're lacking sleep? Why is it they're failing to sleep? It's probably because they were hooked on the social media, because they were just on their phone, so they couldn't sleep. So let's also talk about the coping mechanisms that young people can employ in dealing with the effects of social media on their mental health. Firstly, find someone to talk to. It's very important to have people that you can talk to. These could be your parents or people from church or someone that you trust, or probably a qualified counselor or a social worker or a psychologist that you can talk to if you have issues. It's not really advisable that when you have issues, you take them live on social media, because people are coming from different situations, and people, the way they deal with those situations are different. They might actually add to the problem that you have, and that might actually lead to people committing suicide. So find someone to talk to. It's also important that you take time off social media. It's also important that you block and unfollow social media platforms that post content that affects your mental health. It's also important to find a hobby or a sport to do as a way of refreshing. And I know right now that most people, our businesses are on our phones or on social media, but it's important that you take one day, you take time off social media, just be off, just think, take a nature walk and just refresh. And as I come to the conclusion, I will conclude with the scripture from John 16, verse 33, and it reads, I've said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. This was Jesus when he was talking to his disciples, and he was telling them that in this world, there are a lot of tribulations that might come, but take heart, have peace. So it is also my prayer to you this afternoon that you may also find peace, whatever that you're going through. Your mental health is important. Find someone to talk to, reach out to someone if you need help, and really get help. And these are my last words, and I wish you a happy week. Enjoy the rest of your week, and also take care of your mental health. I've been Ronald Tim Tatabigwa.